Okay, let's dive in. Today we're tackling ethical decision-making. It's fundamental, really.
Absolutely. So many business decisions, maybe even most, have these ethical threads woven through them.
Because they affect people, right? Different stakeholders, different impacts, and every choice kind of signals certain values.
Exactly. Think about pricing, suppliers, hiring, even where you build something. It's never just numbers.
You're dealing with, a whole web of people, employees, customers, the community.
Shareholders, too. And knowing how to make those calls responsibly, well, that's key.
And just, wanting to do the right thing sometimes isn't quite enough when things get murky. You need a bit of structure.
Which is why we're looking at this source today. It gives us two frameworks, two ways to approach this systematically.
Right. We've got this study guide here, and it lays out the American Accounting Association model, the AAA model, and also Tucker's 5-question model.
And these aren't just theory. They're meant to be, practical tools to help really work through the ethics when things get tough.
So our mission for this deep dive, let's unpack these two models, see how they actually work, maybe with some examples.
And figure out what the real takeaway is for you listening. What do these frameworks actually do for your decision-making?
Okay, let's unpack this. How about we start with the AAA model?
Sounds good. This one came out of a report back in 1990 for the American Accounting Association.
And the source describes it as a logical 7-step process.
Yeah, and the key thing, I think, is that it builds the ethical side right into the process. It's not an add-on at the end.
Okay, so step 1.
Establish the facts of the case.
Seems basic, but crucial. Yeah. No ambiguity.
Definitely. If you get the facts wrong, the whole analysis can go sideways. So nail down exactly what's happening.
Okay, facts straight. Then step 2.
Identify the ethical issues. Based on those facts, what are the actual ethical questions or dilemmas that pop up?
Makes sense. And step 3. This sounds important.
It is. Identify the norms, principles, and values relevant to the case.
So the context, like professional codes, social norms, laws.
Exactly. Maybe company values, maybe specific regulations like stock market rules, if that's relevant. What standards should apply here?
Got it. That sets the benchmark. Step 4.
Identify alternative courses of action. Just list them out.
Without judging them yet.
Right. What could you possibly do in this situation? Brainstorm the options.
Okay. Then step 5 is where you start evaluating.
Yep. Evaluate those alternatives against the norms and values from step 3. Which options actually line up with those standards?
And which ones, clearly don't.
Precisely. It's a kind of ethical filter.
Okay, so you filtered the options. Step 6.
Consider the consequences of each outcome. For the options still on the table, what happens if you choose that path? What are the likely results? The ripple effects.
And try to be really clear about those implications.
Make them unambiguous, yeah. Think broadly.
And finally, step 7.
Take the decision. Based on everything you've just worked through, facts, issues, norms, options, consequences, you make the call.
It sounds very methodical.
It is. Very structured. Let's try it with that scenario the source gives. The auditor one.
Oh yeah, the bribe scenario. Okay, set it up.
Right, so an auditor finds this weird large cash payment in the client's books, asks about it, gets a really dodgy explanation, suspects it's a bribe.
Okay.
Then, before they can dig deeper, the client offers the auditor a big chunk of money personally. Just, forget you saw that payment.
Wow. Life-changing money, the source says. So should the auditor take it?
Okay, let's run it through the AAA steps. Step 1, facts. Auditor found a suspicious payment, thinks it's a bribe, got a bad explanation, then got offered a personal bribe to cover it up. Clear.
Step 2, ethical issues.
Pretty stark. Should an auditor accept a bribe? It's illegal, obviously, and it completely undermines their professional duty.
Right. Step 3, norms and values. What applies to auditors?
Well, integrity is huge. Impeccable integrity. Their whole purpose is to give a true and fair view of the finances.
For who?
Primarily for shareholders, but also for the public, anyone relying on that audit. So objectivity, independence. Those are key norms. Anything that compromises that is a failure.
Public trust is a big one there too, I imagine.
Absolutely. Okay, step 4, alternatives.
Seems like 2 main paths. Option 1, take the money, ignore the payment.
Option 2, refuse the bribe and then do what you're supposed to do professionally about the suspicious payment and the bribe attempt.
Okay, step 5. How do these align with the norms we just talked about? Integrity, duty, trust.
Well, option 1, taking the bribe. It completely violates all those norms. It's the opposite of integrity and duty.
No alignment there. Option 2, refusing.
That lines up perfectly. Refusing the bribe and acting professionally is upholding those norms.
So step 5 basically rules out option 1 ethically.
It does. But let's quickly look at step 6, consequences, just for completeness.
Okay, consequences of option 1, taking the bribe.
You get the money, sure, but huge risk of getting caught, professional ruin, legal trouble. Plus, you've got to live with it. And the client now kind of owns you, doesn't he? Blackmail potential.
Yeah, not great long-term prospects. Consequences of option 2, refusing.
You don't get the cash. The client relationship is probably toast. Maybe the client faces serious trouble, but you keep your integrity, your reputation, you uphold the standards of your profession, protect the shareholders' interests, maintain that public trust.
So step 7, the decision.
Pretty clear-cut through this process. Option 2, refuse the bribe.
What's really interesting there is how steps 3 and 5, identifying norms and checking alignment, come before you really weigh the personal consequences in step 6.
Exactly. It forces you to frame the decision around your ethical duties first, not just a personal risk-reward calculation.
It provides that structure, makes you define the ethical goalposts up front. Okay, that's the AAA model. What about the other one, Tucker's 5-question model?
Right. This one feels a bit different, more like a set of prompts. The source says it's often pretty useful for corporate decisions, partly because profitability is explicitly one of the questions.
And it requires maybe a bit more interpretation. Source mentioned that.
Yeah, some of the questions aren't simple yes/no. They make you think about context, different viewpoints.
So what are the 5 questions?
Okay, they are. 1, is it profitable? 2, is it legal? 3, is it fair? 4, is it right? And 5, is it sustainable or environmentally sound?
Okay, simple list, but I see what you mean about interpretation. Is it profitable compared to what?
Exactly. Is it fair? Well, fair to whom? You have to think about the stakeholders involved.
And is it right? That sounds like it could open up a whole philosophical debate. The source mentioned deontology versus teleology.
Right. Is the action right based on rules or duties, deontology, or based on the outcomes, teleology? The question forces you to consider your ethical stance. It doesn't just hand you the answer.
Makes you clarify your own thinking. The source used those factory scenarios to illustrate this one, right? Starting with a simpler version.
Yeah, scenario 1. Big company wants to build a factory in a developing country. Cheaper labor, cheaper land means it looks more profitable than alternatives.
Okay.
The local government is helpful, all the legal boxes are ticked, and the local people, they're keen for the jobs, see it as good economic development.
Any environmental angle.
Yeah, built on reclaimed brownfield land and uses tech with lower emissions than older stuff in the area.
Okay, let's apply Tucker's questions to that. Is it profitable?
Yes. The scenario states lower costs mean better returns.
Is it legal?
Yes. Government helped ensure full compliance.
Is it fair?
Well, based only on what we're told here.
Yes.
The workforce benefits, no one seems obviously harmed.
Yeah. Is it right?
Seems so in this version. It brings economic growth, helps people, no downsides mentioned.
And is it sustainable or environmentally sound?
Yes. Brownfield site, lower emissions tech, checks that box too.
So in that simplified case, it's pretty much green lights all the way. Profitable, legal, fair, right, sound, easy decision.
Seems like it, but then the source adds complexity. Scenario 2.
This is where it gets interesting. What's the catch?
Same factory plan, same place, but now we learn how they got that brownfield land. The government forcibly took it from a poor community.
Oh.
People considered second-class citizens living there in a slum. Now they've been displaced, nowhere to go.
Okay, wow. How does that change the answers to Tucker's questions? Let's go through them again. Is it still profitable?
Yes. The basic cost structure for the company hasn't changed.
Is it legal?
This gets murky. The company might have followed the local laws, but the source suggests the legal system itself might be unjust or capable of oppression, given the forced displacement.
So legal doesn't necessarily mean just or ethical in this context.
Exactly. It's technically legal, maybe, but within a very problematic framework, not a simple yes.
Okay. Is it fair?
Now, this is completely different. The jobs are still a factor for some, but that benefit comes at the direct, huge cost of the displaced community losing their homes.
So the fairness question forces you to weigh those conflicting impacts. It's clearly unfair to the displaced group.
Definitely. The answer really hinges on how you balance those competing claims.
What about, is it right?
Again, much harder now. Is it right to cause such harm to a vulnerable group for economic gain, even if others benefit? It brings up fundamental questions about rights, justice. You might need more info, the source says, like, did the community have legal title? Are there rehousing plans? But the core ethical conflict is clear.
And finally, is it sustainable or environmentally sound?
That part probably hasn't changed much based on the info given. Still brownfield, still better tech, perhaps.
So Tucker's questions, faced with that extra uncomfortable truth, suddenly paint a very different picture. It's not easy anymore.
Not at all. It goes from a clear yes to a really complex, ethically challenging situation. And the questions highlight exactly where the problems lie. The questionable legality, the blatant unfairness, the difficult rightness calculation.
So Tucker's model doesn't give you the answer in complex cases, but it really surfaces the key ethical hotspots, the things you absolutely have to grapple with.
Precisely. It forces you to confront the trade-offs, the potential harms, the conflicting values.
Okay, so we had these two models, AAA, the step-by-step process rooted in norms. Tucker, the set of probing questions highlighting conflicts and context. If we bring them together, what's the main point here?
Well, I think it's that these aren't just academic exercises. They show that ethical thinking isn't some separate activity you do after the business decision. It's integral to the decision.
They change how you even approach the problem.
Right. They force you to build in that analysis of norms, values, fairness, consequences right from the start. It's not just about the money or the operations.
It's about the whole human and ethical dimension. The AAA helps you stick to established standards.
And Tucker is really good when you've got those competing claims, different stakeholders pulling in different directions, helping you articulate those conflicts.
Both give you structured ways to actually see the ethical issues, name them, and think them through deliberately.
Instead of just reacting or going with your gut, especially when things get complicated.
So what this really means for you, the listener, is that these are tools. They won't magically make hard decisions easy.
No. Definitely not.
But they give you a way to navigate the complexity, to make sure you're asking the right questions, looking at it from different angles, and making a more considered, responsible choice.
Moving beyond just the simple answers or maybe the easy answers.
Exactly. Making a responsible decision, like you said earlier. So maybe a final thought for you to mull over. These frameworks provide structure, but that complex factory scenario really drove home that tough decisions often involve balancing good things against other good things or trying to minimize unavoidable harm. How does thinking about applying a deliberate structure like the AAA steps or Tucker's questions change how you might view a difficult decision you faced or might face, compared to just improvising or following the usual path?
Would it have brought different factors to light? Would it have changed the conversation? Something to think about.